Star Warsian wipe.
Star Warsian.
Isabel, my girlfriend did notice how in the sequel trilogy there's not as many wipes as there were in the prequels.
Yeah, I saw a video that was like all
they got a bidet.
The total number of wipes for each movie, and they played them like all at the same time.
Wow.
What movie had the best wipes?
Huggies.
There you go. You're probably right.
Jesus.
I was trying
the famous movie
so
Huggies.
hard to think about like the Super Bowl, the movie. I'm trying to think of something, and
Super Bowl,
with
the movie.
Huggies.
You're looking for some shit humor.
By the way, why do the Charmin bears love pooping? Like they're
you would understand this more than anybody because you constantly say the exact words verbatim.
The king of
love pooping. You say this like fucking 4 times a day, and you're like, why do these bears like this so much? You know why?
Yeah, you know exactly why.
Things, you know, maybe I'm the Charmin bear deep inside.
You're a Charmin bear, yeah.
Yeah, it's loosely really based on my life.
Yeah.
But okay. So the topic of the evening is music and menswear, or basically how music influences our style. This is based on the podcast episode which came out last Sunday. You can listen to that, available on all platforms. It's me and Spencer talking about our relationships with music and, you know, what we see in the menswear world and how a lot of guys, you know, seem to come from a very punk or metal background. You know, the jazz that everyone loves or so obsessed with, Miles Davis, all that.
Everyone loves it.
It's on the podcast. And then you could read my essay, which dives deeper into how I literally apply what I do in music to how I dress, which is very weird, as many people have told me. But yeah, it's all that on the blog. And today we're going to be talking just more candidly and with a couple of people who are here with us in the Discord. But as a brief refresher, Spencer, tell us about what your taste in music is, just so we know.
I mean, so right now, what I talked about on the episode was what I've been listening to most recently, which is a lot of, I guess, just calming guitar music. I've been listening to
John Mayer much?
Yeah, there you go. I've been listening to a lot of like folk guitar from the 40s and 50s. And then jazz guitar from the 20s and 30s. And that's what I was talking about specifically in the episode. No, it's just like I said, it started because I was reading this book. I don't think I have it around me, so I can't plug it, unfortunately. Right. That's all about the FBI's investigations into folk singers. And I mean, it's about the FBI's actions against the Communist Party and its members.
Oh, the McCarthy stuff, or is that unrelated?
I mean, it's related. It's like all part of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was reading that book, and I just started listening to folk music a lot more. And yeah, I mean, I've always really liked folk music since high school. And yeah, I think it kind of shows in my style, which is very Americana. It's all like military surplus.
Ever since I met Spencer, you know, like every time I'm in the car, I hear folk music or like old rockabilly or old rock and roll. And on the days that Spencer and I, you know, of course we're not, you know, news alert, we didn't always wear suits every day, but it kind of made sense, you know, with him wearing work jackets, sports shirts tucked into high-waisted jeans and boots. Like it just kind of always made sense when I was looking at him, you know.
Exactly.
So for me, as many as you guys all know, I love listening. I think film score is a little bit of like a broad term because I do like other composers, mainly like Prokofiev. But it's basically a lot of orchestral music. I don't think it's inherently better than everything else because it's not. It's very weird. But I do think it comes from a place because I like to create things, and I think the music I listen to for fun, like, you know, in the car, on a date, in a picnic or whatever, that's mainly like indie music, or as a lot of people have said, very hipster LA, you know, Gen Z kind of music. Sue me, I'm 25 years old, whatever. But the music I listen to most as in an active way is a lot of film score and a lot of orchestral compositions from like the, you know, from like the early 20th century. And it's because I like writing stuff like that, or stuff that's kind of takes a lot of inspiration from it. And like I say in the podcast, or like I write, I apply it in the very. It kind of provided a baseline of how I approach clothing, where, you know, I look at inspiration, I take it, I distill what I can from it, and then I wear an outfit. Same thing with like listening to film score, where MJ and Spencer know whenever I write something, they can be like, oh yeah, that's like this cue from Star Wars, or that's this cue from Lincoln, or whatever. There's a lot of, you know, pulling what I like from it. And just like with clothing, instead of looking at like the vintage examples, like, you know, for clothing that could be like looking at old Lawrence Phillips illustrations. For film score, it could be watching or listening to like Star Wars, John Williams stuff. I like, or I guess more accurately, listening to like Shostakovich or whatever. I like listening to film score because it's like a modern way of those ideas. Of course, there's that, you know, film score is new. It's kind of self-referential by the definition of it being for cinema, which, and you know, it takes inspiration from a lot of other art forms. But it's like that, you know, there's always new films coming out, but there isn't as much like Prokofiev is dead. You know, Jimmy Stewart's dead.
God,
what?
George Fellows is dead.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Holy shit!
So
This is
it's trending on Twitter.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe I missed that. Wow.
But to get these ideas, it's like I have to listen to you know, and film score is silly enough for me to hear it without being too serious. It's like being like, oh, music, I gotta, you know, listen to some modern.
But what do you mean silly?
Well, because it's film, like it's not taken as seriously as like.
Sure,
You know,
okay.
There's a lot of slide
music.
whistles.
Yeah. But no, it's true. It's kind of, you know, it's like, I don't know. I think it's very similar to, at least to menswear in my head. It's like, okay, you know, I'm looking at menswear, especially like guys like Drake's, which is Ivy or whatever, which not only takes inspiration from the past and reinterprets it, but it's also like, if I really like, you know, there's the idea that, oh, if you really like fashion as an academic endeavor, why don't you like the avant-garde or couture, right? And it's like, no, I mean, I know what I like. I know it's silly to wear a tie and a sport coat, but it's like my feeling. I like doing that. And
You've taken the silly pill.
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, you know, I think film score and listening to that kind of stuff has prepared me for that. The only difference that music is a little bit harder to describe, I think, because it's, you know, there isn't that kind of background that like a suit has, right? There's just, also you can see your reaction to fashion because you can wear what you like, as opposed to music where you can show people, but then typically music is a very insular, very personal kind of thing, you know? But that's all my stuff. I don't think I dress like a composer, although I think I kind of do if you expand on that idea a lot. There's a lot of cool dressed composers. There's a lot of bad dressed film composers. But yeah, that's my whole thing with music. Listen to the podcast. Listen with your eyes to the essay with your little sneak peek. That's right. But hey, let's keep moving on here. So MJ, what is your relationship with music, and do you think it's inspired your style? I know that, again, yeah, if you guys have been listening, MJ is rather new to the whole menswear thing, at least comparative to most of the people in here. So might be a little of a loaded question, or too big a question, but I'm curious.
Too big. Kind of is. To be completely honest, right?
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. I mean, other than I listen to like a lot of stuff too. Ethan's put me on like a lot of stuff recently. Especially with the surge of like interest in indie rock and stuff like that. I was reading through David's comment in the chat, and that's pretty much same. I mean, other than like video game and anime music making me feel like the protagonist that dresses cool in like in like public.
Yeah.
Like,
let me read his comment real quick here.
The soundtrack of your life.
Let's read it. So David says music and his style are like church and state. It doesn't affect how he dresses. He grew up listening to his dad's music, so a lot of Motown, and in the 90s he listened to alternative rock. I feel you. Then rap, then electronic. Now he listens to a little bit of everything, and he loves music, but it doesn't do anything in regard to how he dresses. When he was younger, he didn't think musicians dressed particularly well, but he thought that they looked cool. So it's pretty. Wait, speak a bit more about the whole like protagonist thing? Because that's a very interesting idea.
I mean, that's more of like a mental thing, or like like a self-confidence, or a
right.
I don't know if you'd consider it like a personality thing, but because it's like, not to make it sound like it's like narcissism, or
you can say that. It's fine. You're talking to me.
I mean, it's okay to be. This might be a little bit of a tangent, but it's okay to be self-aware of like how cool you are, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
I mean,
we're all the main character in our own films.
Yeah, you're the main character of your own story. So, because like I'm going through like my phone right now, and like my recent stuff is like, so I have like the soundtrack for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then I scroll a little bit down and I have All Time Low, and then Corpse Husband is in here, and then Bring Me Horizon and Evangelion is next. So it's just like, it sounds cool. It makes me feel cool. Wearing clothes that make me feel cool also. So
yeah,
if you wanna tie that together somehow, I
think it can, because Kiyoshi isn't in here because he said he didn't have anything to contribute, which I think everyone has something to say, but he talked about in the chat about like slouchiness and everything before, or dressing like a person, POV stuff. It's that he dresses cinematically. I think Ralph Lauren also said something like that. And I definitely think in a very cinematic lens, not to make it narcissistic, but it's fun to think of yourself as a character.
I mean, be self-aware about that. I think that that's maybe closer to how I dress, or like what influences my dress. Like, thinking like what kind of character, what kind of guy do I want to be?
Right.
I mean, that's I've done like costuming for like high school plays and stuff like that.
Right.
So you learn that thought process.
Right.
Yeah. I think it is cool. I mean, that could be an extension of when I say like dress intentionally, right? Like, what person do you want to look like? What are the choices that this guy that you're being you would want to make? And I think that's not, we're going to talk in the future. We already wrote down cosplay and authenticity in the schedule for future podcast episodes, because I think that's very fascinating. But there's that idea of like, the extension of yourself. What character are you, right? And I think what music is a soundtrack to your life. I think that's very, very interesting. And maybe that's why I like film score, because I think when I think of movies that I like, Spencer knows this, I definitely I have an appreciation for all cinema. I like a variety of different stuff. Maybe not horror, whatever. But I don't like being scared. But I always tend to gravitate toward films that take the extra mile of having a score. I don't think a score is absolutely necessary for every film, obviously, but it's just a nice touch, because it just means that the director or the producers, whatever, from the get-go decided that they wanted someone to score it. It doesn't matter if it's John Williams, could be Daft Punk, could be Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, could be whatever you want it to be. And I think that's very cool, the intentional decision to create original music for whatever this is, right? And that's kind of like stuck with me. And then of course the way I think about it is, okay, the music that I would have score in my life, I should be able to write that music. So it kind of just feeds into this whole idea of having a bunch of inspo, like just how people save inspiration albums on their phone, make Imgur stuff, save stuff on Instagram. I think that that's my taste in music, and and it makes sense that you would apply that to how I dress too. Okay, producer Matt, what about you? I know, because hey, you're studying music, so it's a little bit of a different bag for you.
You're a scholar of the sound.
That's what I call myself. This topic has always been interesting, but it's been sort of a slow burn and sort of my take on it. Like even just now, like it's sort of like changing, where it's like I might not be bopping all the time to classical music, but I do have genuine interest in the stuff that I work with daily. So it's like opera or lied, or I just this
music is good stuff, man.
It is. It's like, and I genuinely, it's something. It's not just faking because you do it. It's like it's a bop and a half, and then you just,
there are things about it, right? There's like the intervals, the way it works is just so like I think I like orchestral music because you have these ideas that you just can't get from like a rap song or whatever.
Yeah.
Not to make it's not elitist. It's just literally like you're not gonna have a tritone
Yeah.
often in like a regular
No.
song. It just doesn't happen. You know, you don't have
Make
a kind
it
of
happen.
call. I don't.
Make it
I
so.
mean, maybe. But you know, but I mean, that's when like rappers start using like samples. But then that's not technically composing the music, right? Like that's a totally different thing.
That's a hot take.
And it's we'll get into that. We'll unpack that later.
When
Is
Ethan
it
gets
though?
into sample talk, all these people should be
Yeah,
in
all bets
prison for
are off.
copyright infringement.
Yeah, first, yeah. Come on now.
Oh my god.
but
But
yeah,
I like
I
I
hope you get
gravitate
chopped and
towards
screwed in prison.
We're guys, we're gonna do a Patreon stretch goal to get Ethan's bail. I like the opera and the leader because of like the emotion, like from the romantic and the classical periods, like just the emotion that comes into the lines of the music, and it's just like it's almost like chamber music. So yeah, that music I do genuinely gravitate towards, but you know, obviously, like that's not all I am because I think that'd be pretty boring if that's all you did, the stuff you worked on. So I do like also indie music like Gabriel Kahane, this modern stuff. Who also I like genre bending people that don't really live in one. They kind of dip from classical to kind of indie to kind of, you know, the rock and all that and pop. So yeah, I mean, and that's that sound I'm always interested in. And so like comparing it to clothing, I mean, that's kind of it's honestly very similar when I thought about where it's like I do genuinely enjoy some of that like quote unquote old Ivy look with the ties and tailoring and all that stuff and the penny loafers and the white tie. Yeah, that's great, but it's like that's not all I want to do. Like I love like wearing, you know, just like the modern crew necks, Brandy Melville sneakers and like Hokas and just like with an overshirt and just like yeah, and then apart from that, mixing the two together. So it really is sort of like it's like the genre bending with clothing almost, where it's like I like mixing it up. So that's that it's very similar to music taste in that way. So it's I like having a little bit of everything, you know, not absolute stuff either way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of similar. You know, I think what I like about some of the modern composers, they do a lot of things that, you know, maybe on paper or just they sound weird, you know.
Sure.
But then it's intentional, and I liken that or make the connection to, you know, look, wearing a tie carelessly or the maximalist stuff that I do to make it slouchy. It's a very loose connection because obviously they're just two different mediums, but it's like that getting used to that idea I think is very cool. But it also
stuff that's happened. Yeah, the flip side.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say the flip side would be like I also don't like, you know, like super modern stuff because I feel like I liken that to like more avant-garde style, which I know I'm not. Like I know I like more tailoring. There's like a good like safe point, which is why I call it silly because it's like, you know, it's still very, you know, on paper, I wear a tie and a sport coat and chinos. Like that's not that crazy, right? You know?
No.
Maybe it's the small ideas that make it a little bit interesting.
But it's like,
do you think?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, it's like recontextualizing too. Like that's what we do with clothing, and it's like, you know, these operas that have existed for so long. We're still, I mean, we do performance practice, and that's what you do to find the specific right details in clothing. But you're still, and so it's you adhere to those performance practice details, but you're still like it's still 2021, and you're still doing this version. So that happens a lot with clothing. But what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, how do you think it applies to how you dress? You know, specifically, or like, do you get inspired by the musicians that you listen to?
Because like, well, I mean, like, there are some like parallel like thoughts. Like, I mean, sometimes I like Gabriel Kahane, an artist I greatly admire. I see him a lot in striped tees or like some like very fuzzy looks, and it's like, yeah, that kind of aligns with his whole thing, like musically, and then also kind of what I like to do. I'm trying to think if there's anything on the classical side. That's hard because we get way back. It
doesn't apply, right? It's just
but I'm trying to. I'll see if there's anything I can kind of glean. But it's like it's kind of like anything where it's like even with musical theater, where it's like, oh, I really like kind of like what I talked about last time, where it's like, oh, I really like these frock coats and all that stuff. Like, and I take elements of that and apply it as a version of that, not literally doing it. You know, so maybe something like that. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, you know, something maybe I neglected on the pod, or maybe just it came to me as an epiphany now. But I do think that my casual style, you know, like the very loose cropped pants, you know, white socks, wearing sneakers, or like work pants with the beanie and short coats and everything. That's a very like LA kind of
Okay.
a vibe, very indie vibe. And I think that the more I got into indie music, the better I got at doing casual stuff, and then vice versa. The more of my taste in indie music kind of expanded as well. I don't really know if that's like, I don't know how that happened. Maybe it could just be a genuine interest in both. That, it happened simultaneously. But I don't think that, as my style developed in the casual way, how indie got meeting more like, indie people, like my friend Adam, who is like going to concerts, and he lives in K-Town, and he's an editor for film, all the kind of like, the very stereotypical indie stuff, shooting a lot of film. I feel like that kind of all kind of played into, as MJ said, like as the deeper I got with indie music, it sounds weird, but also kind of makes sense. The more friends I make, the people I like to date, because one thing I realized too is, when you tell a girl, oh, I listen to orchestral music, aka film scores,
there was a period where I just listened to Broadway, Broadway and jazz, not jazz. It was like Broadway. What was it? I think Broadway jazz, but jazz in the style of the swinger, like the Frank Sinatra. That's what I mean by jazz. That and like some classical, but so that was not a hot take.
I said on the episode, that's one of the reasons why I want to learn guitar, is because it's much cooler. To say I listen to 1920s folk guitar, not folk guitar, just jazz guitar, if you can like actually play a song.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I sang that stuff. I sang musical theater and jazz, that kind of Sinatra stuff. But I agree. I think
we
it's
all
nice
did,
to do
right? I mean, all four of us.
I think singing is different than playing an instrument, though.
I agree.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, but we all have like a.
Well, like because like the jamming aspect of playing your guitar versus the vocal guitar.
I mean,
it's a little more chill too. Whip out the guitar.
Chill, yeah. And it kind of. Then I think that's why, when I had that like epiphany midway through the blog post, I was like, oh, maybe I do dress like a composer, because technically I can just show people my music, or I can just play the piano in front of people, and it just works, right? Because it's like so I definitely get what Spencer's saying, where having that as like a back kind of makes sense, right? Like it's weird when like a neckbeard guy listens to music, right, or listens to film score and anime music and whatever.
Who's this fucking nerd listening to music?
Listens to music.
Yeah. Well, but like going from that, like, oh, this is so epic, to being like, okay, no, I can take what I learned from this and then apply it here. Not to be gatekeeping, but I feel like, well, it's not about like you can't listen to it unless you can do it, but it enhances the experience. At least
it just makes you more textured as a person.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna share it with people, then I mean, because again, honestly, for me, I would just remove myself from music conversations, because I just had nothing to contribute. Like, I'm not going to.
But I have to say, in real life, I don't know that like you tell like a new girlfriend, hey, or she asks, hey, what do you listen to? It's like, oh, I listen to Eminem. Or it's like, oh, do it, just do it, freestyle.
That's different.
I think, maybe it's because some music kind of implies, a lifestyle, right? Like, or something about it, right? Or like, skill. Maybe if you like, or skill, just kind of like how. No one's going to say like, well, obviously for us, right? No one's going to ask us, oh, what do you like to dress? But maybe because we are open about it, people might ask what we do a little bit more, because they want to connect what we wear to the music that we, or not the music, or the life that we lead. And maybe the same thing could be said with certain genres of music, because if you said, oh, I listen to show tunes, they might ask, oh, are you an actor? Do you also do it? That's kind of like a common thing, right? Or at least the connection
if you're not listening to like stuff that like if you're listening to stuff, I guess, outside of the norm, then
it is weird if you're like not actively doing it. Yeah, it's like, why are you listening to this independently at 20?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing too. Like, I feel like it also kind of makes sense how I dress if I listen to show tunes, but that's because I do like watching shows.
Yeah, I mean, you like it.
I listen to a lot of show tunes.
Oh, you're a big fan.
I mean,
you're
also in theater. You're also in theater.
Not really anymore.
Right?
I did. I
mean, you were. Is what I'm saying.
You have a background.
Yeah, I guess.
Hey, we'll get to you in a second. Whoa, come on, dude.
Come on, Eileen.
But I was gonna say, I think that aspect. I mean, again, you can't really dress. There are certain aspects of dress, of music, that have like a look. Like, I think Spencer's makes the most sense, right? Like, with the thing, with the thing, with like Americana and everything. Show tunes, maybe not really. I mean, there is that starter pack for like, theater kids or something.
Yeah.
Don't be a theater kid.
No.
Don't try it.
At least like there's kind of like a generic one for indie, right? That's why you got all those guys wearing band t-shirts tucked into dicky pants, white socks, Vans, and like a watch cap or something. And then with I still love SLP. That's like kind of like the big music genre mix, like the
I was gonna say that's kind of cross genre in a way, right?
Yeah, because it's like this look that is kind of like French 60s inspired, but also rock musician inspired, heroin chic. It's slim pants, Chelsea boots, leather jackets, aloha shirts or rayon shirts. It's a very, very interesting look that I feel like maybe it didn't make sense early for me, like just because it was so different from what I listened to. Although I did listen to like the Killers and the Strokes.
And Jenny was a friend of yours.
Yeah. But then I think later on, as my musical taste developed, it kind of makes more sense because now it's kind of also the look of Chelsea boots and leather jacket is pretty common now.
But
I mean, that's music, baby.
Says the podcast guy. Okay.
Yeah. Where on the totem pole? Where's it rank? The podcast and the theater.
I would say podcast guy is hopefully above theater kid because at least the podcast guy is a man and not a child.
I guess. You said, Ethan, you said something as you were like developing your casual style. You're also getting more into indie music. And when we discussed this earlier this week in the Discord, there was I think someone brought up this whole chicken and the egg, what comes first? Or I think, we just talked about it in the podcast. And I sort of weighted in on it by saying that ultimately I think that you control what you do, whether it's like the clothes or the music, but I think it's comes from within you and your life experience and what things are interesting to you, and then you just kind of, okay, well, I'll wear this and I'll listen to this, and I think there's some crossover, obviously, but yeah, I think that we shape our destinies.
I mean, very, very well put. I think that's definitely true. I mean, I can't speak to a huge extent about the exploration of music.
How about a mini?
Because it's. I mean, at least I think what I listen to is still very, very maybe not niche, but still very specific. But I think I'm just a specific guy because, again, like we've had this conversation before, where I might wear spear point collars and berets and everything. It's so weird, but if you really look at it, it's not that wild. Like in general, there's not a lot of variance. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff that I like, but it's still within this kind of
classic menswear.
Yeah, classic. And so it kind of makes sense, where I like film score, but even though or composing, but in my head. There's still a very specific sound that I'm after. Just like with the POV, there's like, I could wear a suit and a tie, but it's what kind of suit? What is the lapels look like? What's the collar? What kind of tie is it? There's all that kind of makes sense. And it's why it took me such a long time to figure out what composers I like that were not film score. Because it's just like, I know that like there's something in there that I like. And a lot of people would just ask me like, oh, did you listen to this? Did you listen to this? And I'm like, yeah, but it's not what I want in my, like, what I want on my phone that I listen to on a regular basis. Just like how I think a lot of what's out there is cool, but I'm not gonna buy it and have it in my closet, right?
Mm-hmm. I swear we'll move on after this, but like I have trouble talking about I'm into classic menswear because it has like what is that, like people who don't even know it, like connotations like what do you wear? Same thing with classical music. So it's like that's what I try to do in both, where it's like I'm not just wearing ties and tailoring and I'm not just like just singing opera all the time. There's more to it and like the genre bending and mixing it all in. All right, I'm done.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you don't have to speed through it. I think that's a very important thing about being able to maybe not codify, but just kind of explain why you like something in case someone asks you.
More context.
I think that's very important. And again, it's easier with clothing because you can just see it. Like I can be the classic menswear, but then you see the guy, he's not stuffy, right? You can see the guy, he's not wearing like.
It's sort of like people. Yeah, right. People. It's like when you see it, it's like people who don't know classic menswear. It is sort of like a je ne sais quoi, or like watching you perform, where it's like you're not just your eyes aren't glazed over and you don't know about what you're singing, and you don't look like a realtor. There's something there they can't pin down, but it's a little bit different. Yeah.
I mean, I just it's again harder with music because I have to explain to people, I like how narrative is conveyed because I don't think that I'm sure there are concept albums out there that carry a similar tune and develop it, but it's still like that in broad strokes. Like you're not going to have again a tritone or motifs or just polychords, all this kind of thing out in like pop music, right? Or even I think maybe EDM kind of has counterpoint at times, but it's just not what I like. It's just not the exact sound that I'm after. So,
Sure.
AKA music has taught me to be super specific. Okay, so let's move on now. Let's talk to Jason, because you've heard him a little bit, a little bit of theater background. You got the My Chemical Romance t-shirt. Tell us about your taste in music and how it may or may not inspire or influence how you dress.
So my taste in music is it's a vast span, right? Because I really enjoy, like Frank Sinatra and that kind of the Kroners and all that.
I like the Beatles. Give me a break.
Yeah, actually, the funny fact, I actually hate the Beatles. But is
that your punk rock contrarianism showing, or?
No, I just don't like the Beatles. Like
I just got a big book that is supposed to be the definitive biography of the Beatles. So get ready for me to listen to a lot of the Beatles coming up.
Okay.
Wow.
Why do we have to get ready for it?
Because
you're gonna look like
his whole life is going to change.
Yeah, that's all he's going to talk about for the next few months.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm going to be like, hey, Rocky Raccoon, good song.
Rocky Rococo, even better.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so I'll still listen to a lot of stuff, like the Four Seasons and things. But then I'll take a shift, right? And then I'll be listening to like, punk classics like, the Clash or the Sex Pistols. But then, on the flip side, again, I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. I'm a huge fan of Blackpink, or even, hyperpop like Dorian Electra or like Charlie XCX. Hyperpop's kind of like the new version of punk in pop. It's not pop punk, which I love also, Blink-182, Fall Out Boy, I love pop punk.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hyperpop is that sort of punk wing of pop specifically, which is an interesting thing, which is like 100 Gex or Dorian Electra, and a lot of the later Charlie X. What?
Mm-hmm.
I hate 100 Gex, dude.
How do you hate 100 Gex, man?
Okay,
is it because they call you a piss boy?
No, we're gonna talk to Henrik in a second, but I think 100 Gex is the absolute definition of Gen Z music. I think that is I can't stand it. I can't do it.
See, what I love about 100 Gex is it takes so much from everything. It didn't.
Yeah, you can call it postmodern all you want. I'm not gonna enjoy it.
All right.
I don't like jazz. I don't like classical.
But I also, I also was super into, I really liked like Skrillex and what he did in like the dance music scene.
Mr. Skrillex, yeah.
Mr. Skrillex himself, or like I love Chromeo and like disco. So I have a very
like Miley Cyrus.
I do like Miley Cyrus, and her new album, Plastic Hearts, is absolute fire.
Yeah, my prof was talking about her. Like, she's like one of the best, like, just like modern interpreters. I don't even know what album she plugged, but just like I have to check out more of her stuff because like she's been under my radar.
She's real good. But it's like it's very rounded. I say rounded, but like it's very broad. The music.
Oh yeah, Backyard Tapes. No, that's what it was.
So it takes a lot of left turns. But my heart is really in that, 2000 sort of emo pop punk scene. That's where that's really where I feel you. The My Chemical Romance is to this day my favorite band. I will listen to them like over every year. Like Apple Music does the the replay, and literally every replay playlist has like a dozen My Chemical Romance songs on it because it's listened to over and over again.
Yeah.
And I see like a lot of my t-shirts, right? I like the band tees. A lot of them are like My Chemical Romance tees.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about that for a little bit. Wearing merch tees with the style, because obviously, as you guys know, he wears a lot of Jason wears a lot of tailoring, a lot of stuff that he's commissioned with Atelier Fugue.
Mm-hmm.
How does the music kind of fit in there?
Yeah, and that's something that's super, that whole hot topic culture, right? Mm-hmm. Was this whole like band, you wore a shit ton of band tees for like, the emo bands, or even the not so emo, but like, the Cobra Starship kind of bands, which are, a weird mix of that pop punk, regular pop, and emo kind of thing. So it was all about like, you know, what bands you were like repping, you know, and so I've always been super into that. For a while, I stopped doing it because I was like, oh, that's not like cool. And then, you know, I recently started getting back into it, going like, well, yeah, it's super cool. I like these bands. I want to, you know, tell people that it's a huge part of my real personality, you know.
Like evangelizing with music.
Right. And so I decided, instead of like, you know, every day, you know, I could wear a shirt and tie and a suit, sure. But there's that sort of punk mentality of wearing a band tee underneath, you know, a suit. And you know, there's that punk sort of sensibility of, I'm still wearing the suit, but I'm wearing it how I want to wear it. You know, the qualifications, the requirements are that I wear a suit. That's the end of it. You know,
right?
And so the
playing
suit,
with the rules, playing with formality,
right? So it's like, okay, so then I'm going to wear a burgundy corduroy suit and a My Chemical Romance T-shirt,
right?
Or in the sense of, today's fit was a sweatshirt, but you know, you get the point. And the same thing with, like, you know, obviously, like wearing like the Chucks, wearing high top, you know, Converse with the suit. It's playing with the formality, right? Like you said.
On that idea.
Yeah. And the music I listen to has informed me that to a T, to where, the fact that I'm listening to and that I grew up with and really resonated with a lot of this punk, whether it be the classic punk or, you know, all the different variations it's gone through, or like, you know, the pop punk or emo. You know, it's like that has informed me that I, you know, in a way that I can take the things that I like and mix it all together.
Right.
You know, I always find it funny, you know, it's the sort of vintage diehards, right? Not like you guys, right? But the people who like the almost costumey vintage people.
Yeah.
You ask them what they listen to, and it's either jazz or classical, and they're like, there's no other music.
Right.
Yeah. You're like, no, it's all garbage. You're like, yeah, okay.
Like, you think they like classic rock or something. You know?
Well, sometimes, I mean, sometimes they do. Don't, you know, it's not, but it's still, very insular, a lot more swing focused and everything.
I think that comes with, you know, they're trying to focus so much on being something, right? They want to be the 1920s or the 1950s, you know, suit guy. And it's like, you can still be those things, and you have to let like your, you know, so it's like you have to let yourself come out through the clothing to make it not look like a costume.
Yeah.
You know,
I also like that whatever they think of jazz and classical is not what those people listen to. Like, it was a lot more diverse, and they just have these stereotypes. They're not listening to Mozart, you know? Anyway.
Yeah. No, I think, you know, that idea you said, you know, about when you wear like a merch T-shirt or a band shirt, you want to let people know about that. That's something that's very new to me. Maybe I've gotten more in that mindset the more I get into indie, because it's like, you know, so I'm not saying that being a hipster is good, but like there's an idea that, you know, you're wearing something that maybe not a lot of people know, right? It presents a very curious, you know, like, oh, what's that band? What's that T-shirt? Oh, it's, well, everyone knows what the Joy Division T-shirt looks like, but it's like that idea, you know, you can see it.
Right, and that was the whole centering around that, you know, that Hot Topic culture that I grew up in, was that, you know, people were wearing these super cool and like brilliantly designed T-shirts, and you're like, oh, what band is that? If their T-shirt is that good, then their band must be good, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which
I never really thought of it that way.
Is quite alarming. If they have a good designed T-shirt, the band's usually pretty good.
Yeah.
Huh. Never. I gotta start paying attention, because I only have one band T-shirt. It's from Miniature Tigers. It's also one of the first non-orchestral concerts I've been to, which was only in 2020, last year in February. But yeah, it was that idea, and I loved it, and it's still, you know, it's like a vibrant yellow, not really mustardy, but a little bit, you know, a little bit like a shade lighter. And yeah, I like wearing it. It's still, you know, it's still one of those things where I can't see myself wearing it with tailoring or in general that much, because, as we all know, I tend to default to not default, I can't say that word, but I tend to like wearing a button up like spear point collar, OCBD, and a tie, and a merch tee doesn't
like
really
to
work
also.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I guess, but like I always start from that mindset
Yeah.
because I always love the idea of like the maximalist slouch, where like I'm wearing a full suit with a tie, but I'm slouching around.
Right.
I don't really have the opportunity to wear a t-shirt very often, as opposed to Spencer, where it works with workwear and everything. So
yeah, and there's
I
no
did
rules
wear
for me
it.
like at work, so that's why I can wear like a t-shirt or something if I wanted to.
I love
Yeah.
how flexible that is. Good.
I mean, I guess I could do that too, but it's still, I mean, it's kind of like proof that I just like tailoring too much.
Yeah.
Like I literally can't shake it, But one of the best outfits I wore with it, MJ was there when we went to karaoke, talk about music and menswear. But I wore it under my green sawtooth Gab shirt. It's like a great green shirt, so the contrast with the yellow and the green was really good. Wore it with some khakis, and then and like a white socks and what do you call it? My Vans Authentics. And it has, overall it looked like a very, like 60s Ivy thing, but it's like, oh no, secret indie guy here, wearing the fun Minter Tigers t-shirt,
Secret.
But the idea of evangelizing the kind of community behind a singular piece of clothing that's signaling things. I mean, it's more of a merch conversation, but I guess it is tied to music a lot. And one reason why I don't have that is because there really wasn't something that allowed me that, right? Because like you don't do that for film score. A lot of the discussions happen online on a forum that you don't have to.
Yeah, and that's right. There's there's no store for film score merch.
Yeah.
At the mall.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, maybe you could rep the movie that you liked, right? But there just isn't.
But then you
can buy the CD at Barnes and Noble.
But that's the thing too. Like when you look at like merchandise, especially there's like the band tees, right? Which is a thing. But then there's like there's like the like the promo, like the Star Wars stuff. And when you get into that, it really rides the fine. You're on a fine line between cool and cringe immediately when it starts getting into sort of like properties.
You don't want to be lame, right? It's a fine line.
Look at me, I'm wearing a Stranger Things t-shirt. Like, great. That's cool.
Because it's like, when it does get bigger, it's hard to be more that independent, unique look,
Well, even that, Stranger Things didn't change my life. It didn't influence my life.
Right.
Like TV shows and movies didn't really do that except for like with the exception of like Star Wars.
Yeah,
like when someone wears like like some fucking like a Bazinga t-shirt, it's like, is that really also, at least I look at clothing as things that they mean things to me. Clothing means something to me. So to wear you wear like the cringe t-shirt, that's like, okay, what's the point of that?
I know we joked about the Star Wars community up top, but there is a community. So when you wear a Star Wars t-shirt, you're identifying with others like, hey, this is something I really like, as opposed to Stranger Things might not have that kind of traction. It's just something that was on, so there's that slight difference too.
Yeah.
Can't really do that with the music. Even if you like, where are you gonna have like a Corn Gold t-shirt? Where are you gonna find that?
Someone make Ethan a Hans Zimmer t-shirt.
Schoenberg. Please don't.
It's gonna be.
I feel like if I did
pictures of Michael Giacchino.
Yeah.
Oh God! Him wearing his fucking top hat and his like neon glasses.
It's so funny, because I'm like second degree friends with him because my friend Michael grew up with him and like made movies with him. And so it's funny that like you guys bring it up and I'm like, man, I feel kind of burnt here because like I'm like a second degree friend.
I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'll tell him. Oh yeah, your stuff in the pre I don't know, Rogue One was good.
Wars.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think to bring it back, because this is not about merch. We'll get into that one in a future one. But yeah, that idea about dressing for the community, signaling things is very cool within music, and I think that it makes sense why a lot of menswear guys get into tailoring afterward, right? Because there is still that kind of signaling thing with, oh yeah, if you're wearing a Liverano suit, the people who know will know, right? Like there's that kind of you can tell kind of thing, and the same thing with any kind of menswear thing. Could be shoes, could be the tie, could be the shirt maker and everything. And there's an idea of the uniform, and there's an idea of like what you wear for this community, right? Like if you like punk, maybe you like and metal, you wear leather jackets, black skinny jeans, whatever. It's a part of that look. And so when you get to menswear, there's a look that you're looking at. So
it's
I'm
like
not surprised,
right?
Mm.
Submersive
exactly.
NT.
Mm-hmm.
With an expensive suit.
Oh yeah,
like
that's
Ethan Newton wearing wearing his like vintage Grateful Dead t-shirts with like his Dalcoore RIP, the Dalcoore suits and like a Wellama fedora. It's very, very interesting. That I think a lot of people I like classic menswear because I feel like there's not as much what do you call it, rules that you would think of. Not everyone looks like a fucking realtor, because if you go like on TMF or whatever, all those YouTuber guys, you probably say, oh, don't wear a band t-shirt, don't wear anything with like words on it, right? But
just don't wear anything with any personality.
No.
Yeah.
Just don't wear anything.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the goal. That's really the goal.
Just wear a burlap sack.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Ivan, let's talk to you now about the music that you like and how, if at all, has inspired your style.
Yeah, so I took like a more serious approach to music when I got into to vintage menswear. They're sort of like, oh, you should listen to jazz. And so I sort of just forced myself to listen to it, and I got really into it. But I knew that's not all I could listen to. And Ethan, I sort of share your sympathy about listening to film scores. Like I really like the Cars 2 score and the Speed Racer score. But my most unusual music interest is the Thomas and Friends soundtrack, because I grew up with the show, and it's got an amazing soundtrack. When it comes to how it influences my style, like not at all, obviously.
You don't dress like
is it obvious,
Mike
though?
O'Donnell?
No.
You don't dress like Alec Baldwin narrating Thomas Friends.
We've all been there.
That idea of childhood stuff. I mean, obviously I grew up watching Star Wars and all that kind of shit, right? Like that's Indiana Jones, watching these films over and over. I think a part of it is like listening to the music, and it's like about kind of recalling those memories, right? Kind of just it's nostalgic, right? And I maybe, and this is probably just me, but like when I listened to those movies as a kid, before I was able to get my hands on the soundtrack, I would try and play along, because the piano is kind of, at my grandma's house, it's close to one of the TVs. So like I would be listening and be like, okay, I hear this melody, I'm going to play it on the piano. Like there's an aspect of like seeing it and doing it, which I guess is like menswear too. Oh, I see. I want to wear that. I'm going to wear that outfit, But you said it doesn't affect how you dress. You don't see, do you see any kind of connotations at all? Or you think it's completely separate?
I do think it's completely separate. Like when on Inauguration Day earlier this year, I wore morning dress, obviously, and like that outfit was pretty much a cosplay of the Fat Controller, like a black morning coat and a yellow waistcoat.
Right. That is that is interesting. And so is that like what else do you listen to? Is that primarily? I mean, I know that there's years of Thomas the Tank Engine music, I guess. So
yeah, but it's mostly the first 7 seasons that I listen to. On occasion, I will listen to like Duel of the Fates or the Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight music.
Wait, okay, so I missed the first part. Is this all the music you listen to total, or just like score?
This is everything.
Oh, okay, so you mostly listen to Thomas the Tank Engine, but sometimes for fun you throw in Duel of the Fates?
Yeah.
I respect that. Take to what you'd like.
We'll say this is a little bit of me jumping in for the for that kind of stuff. But the best versions of those are not the concert versions that they did for the film, but the actual cues that you can only get from the recording sessions or when they rip it out of the Blu-ray, because there hasn't been an expanded release of Revenge of the Sith. And I guess I can link that in the thing. But there's
maybe the 20th anniversary or something.
Hey, dude, it's been. I doubt it. I really want it. But Duel the Fates actually had score for specific pieces of the film because it's like a duel, that cuts back and forth. But at the last second, George Lucas decided to recut the music with the concert piece, which is like the 4 or 5 minute piece of just the Duel of the Fates as written, separate from the film, and he just faded those in in those moments, which I think is a travesty and just awful because that's not how it's supposed to be. And you can hear the edits. Like if you were able to watch it and pull it, you can hear those edits. And I think that's just really dumb. And for the Anakin versus Obi-Wan stuff, there's a big chunk of the Battle of the Heroes thing that's missing in the main score, the main soundtrack release for Revenge of the Sith. But I think I have those recording sessions, and I'll put it in the in music.
You better.
But yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Like you get I think it's what's so cool about film score, and I guess it's kind of relates to the kind of the bootlegs and everything, is that having access to something that people haven't heard of openly, and also being able to hear what the composer is trying to do behind the scenes. Because a lot of stuff in film, right? There's still dialogue. Like not every scene is just music, right? And so, being able to hear what narrative ideas he's presenting, in those quiet scenes, in the dialogue scenes or whatever, I think is really cool. And one reason why I like film score.
I will say that I know that the Thomas and Friends things sounds odd, but like, go on YouTube, search up Night Train, the Night Train instrumental, and just go from there, and you will be like immersed with the soundtrack.
I mean, I don't deny it, dude. I mean, it's an English TV show with an orchestral soundtrack. I feel like there's gonna be something I'm gonna enjoy in there, But yeah, I'll give it a good old fashioned listen. But
not these new old fangled listens.
Yeah. But I will say again, I do have a very specific sound that I'm after. There's a lot of like
that sound,
interjections and like and stuff that I like. Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, thank you, Ivan. Let's move on here. I know Henrik has just unmuted himself, so I'm assuming that takes it as a signal that he wants to talk now.
He's ready.
So tell us about your taste in music and how it influences or doesn't with your style or whatever.
Yeah, no. But the latter first, I don't know. Maybe slowly get to the style influences part. I don't know. I guess when you get a little bit older, like there are diminishing returns into like looking into newer music. So how much any music I listen to is at least 20 years old. Mm-hmm. I don't listen to anything made after probably 2010, except rap music, probably.
Okay.
A few parts. Like indie, for me, indie music ended probably in the late 2000s. There's no. It's difficult to explain to someone who's Gen Z, I suppose, but that the music infrastructure used to be entirely different. And that something did happen. And we touched on this before with sort of when you get your style ideas and advice mediated through algorithmically structured platforms. That is really recent in history, and music did succumb to that at some point. And I do remember when it started to happen, discourse was more or less, this is a great moment of democratization in music, that you can seamlessly switch from Baroque music to Eric Satie to Taylor Swift sort of within a playlist that's automatically shuffled or algorithmically generated. There was a great deal of excitement at the time, but that has been a disaster. Precisely because like the economy of attention that you need to develop a taste in music simply does not exist anymore, or even the kind of spaces that that music was allowed to exist in doesn't even exist. Like now, like the time span for like new music to background for an advertisement for a product is like a month. It's insane. It used to be at least like a decade before anything was recognizable enough that a big advertisement company would put that in an ad, for instance. And now that cycle no longer exists, and that sort of one of the most important thing about indie music was sort of its at least nominal structural independence from the greater music industry, and that does not exist. It exists like in a complete DIY fashion, but that's also completely divorced really from like a living, expanding infrastructure. There's some exceptions, like some subcultures persist analog in an analog way, so on, but it really bears very little resemblance to what it was like, say, 20 or 15 years ago. And you can hear that in the music. I'm sort of trying to put some of that out. But as for my own taste, I mean, it's vast, and I have like spent probably from age, say, 12 to 22, music was probably the most important thing. And I was engaged in like a deep study of like the history of popular music in most forms, from 60s and 70s soul from Motown and Stax. I have like hundreds of records of collections that spans that. Reggae music is like a personal thing that's like maybe like slightly unusual for someone who's, at least in the US, like reggae is not like a big thing, but it was in the UK when I was there. That's sort of where I went to all those clubs in London, where sort of is the home of reggae music, of Island Records and so on. That was a big deal. Classical music is now the most important thing. That has changed. It's become like a mental hygiene in your 30s, sort of too, precisely because classical music retains, even though it's old-fashioned, it retains like a resistance against the claims of attention and distraction of any other form of music and its consumption. So it is like going to a concert hall, going to like see a symphony orchestra, and just appreciate the immense skill and time investment that goes into just rehearsing and producing pieces like that. Is just like a unique thing that might not be around for that much longer also after COVID, at least not unless you live in like a major city. There might not be like symphony orchestras in like Minneapolis or St. Louis because you go there and like everyone's over 85 or 80. It's like, it's insane how geriatric, like if you go to Chicago, Minneapolis, I don't know, New York and LA is hopefully a little bit better, but it's breathtakingly skewed demographically, and it's hard to see how that can improve. But so, my advice, whatever it is, the thinking about it is that do sort of loop backwards, sort of it's in your 30s towards what you were able to consume. Like there's a certain type of openness that you probably only have from like 12 to or your early 20s, and that the window closes in terms of when you're open to like radically new stuff. But when later on you get much better at appreciating these things that have sort of slipped through the window, with greater sophistication, deeper knowledge, greater historical connectivity around it. And style is very similar to that. That part is style. So there's no direct influence, I think, for me, in terms of something that I absorb through music that then seeps into my style. Not really. There's always been great, stylish people, from like Serge Gainsbourg to various jazz musicians to even rock musicians that look cool, but that's not been like a direct influence. What has been influence is that maturity in style is a real thing, both in music and in clothes. And the kind of, like you said, like we talked about before, like wanting to be a guy. At some point, you do stop wanting to be a guy, and that's a good thing. You become somebody. For better or worse, you become the guy.
You are that guy.
In most cases, you don't become the guy, but that's fine. You become something else entirely, or something, but you do at least. Well, I do get like completely embittered and resentful, which is of course also a choice. But you can also, there's a certain type of confidence and comfort that comes from that. The idea of verge, though, is that precisely that comfort is perhaps different. Like style, we strive towards ease, slouch, comfort, and so on. In music, I don't think so. In the sense that, especially in classical music, with modern music and so on, nothing is comfortable or made to be comfortable. The dissonance and the shock and the contrast between the pleasant, the experience of music as a work of art has sort of they've sort of changed paths completely. So, and even in music too, it's sort of the surprise and the variety is much more important than like you settle on or become comfortable with. It's not like it's something that you use as a point of departure, right? That's something you settle in or are comfortable with. Right. So that's the. No, if that's perhaps a discussion, but I think it is a different way.
No, that's a very interesting thing, because obviously us start having being a different generation and approaching and getting inspiration in such different ways, I think puts us at philosophical odds, at least a little bit, or how we approach and everything.
You got screwed over a bit in terms of music, but every generation says that to its ladder, but. At some point, it's true. Like hypochondriacs are right in the end, as the joke goes.
Yeah, right. Sure enough.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about it then in the Discord, I was like, yeah, for me, I never had deep musical discussions with friends in high school, or there was never friendships based on that. And I don't know if that's because I was just listening to, I was listening to older stuff in high school when I first started dressing. Or if that's just a thing that doesn't really happen.
Do you think
anymore.
Spencer, do you think that it kind of held did it held you back because your taste was different, or
I don't think what in terms of what just music?
Well, I'm just gonna say if you're talking about community wise,
no, I mean I think I did fine. And I wasn't.
Yeah, I know.
I was able, we just talked about other things. But yeah.
I think, that was something that again in the Discord we had a very good discussion about just music in the state and generational differences and everything. But I think maybe one reason why I'm so good about wearing a suit on my own is because I already have a weird music taste. What else could go wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a weirdo. I'm weird.
Yeah. But I think it's good when you find like you'll hear about in 2 weeks when we talk about menswear communities and friends. It's great that the friends I did retain kind of understand music, or at least are able to kind of get after what I'm going with. You know what I mean? Like Spencer and MJ both know what I mean when I talk about the sound, or what I consider to be a good approach to a cue versus a bad one, or whatever, or why we think Michael Giacchino is not good. Mm-hmm. There's just that it's kind of understanding. But yeah, that in terms of finding music on your own, I didn't even think about the algorithmic thing, because I had always kind of found my music very intentionally. I kind of I discovered it through conversation with people I'd never met before. On the film score forums, and I also think another reason too is I learned it from films, and I get to pick what films I watch, right? So I guess only recently have I discovered the kind of algorithmic thing in regards to my taste in indie music. It hasn't kind of defined everything that I had done, but that's maybe also one reason why I don't understand when people look at the explore page for Instagram. I feel like there's a little bit of a commonality there where I think I can trust my own taste in defining what I want to include on my feed, as opposed to okay, what else is new out there?
I mean, hey, there's
I think searching for new is important.
Was it Vanity Fair? The Martin Scorsese piece that came out where he against algorithms.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like that one more than the other one.
Henrik,
it doesn't really affect me. Yeah.
You said that your your developmental stages with music, early 20s and all that stuff. Maybe classical music wasn't in there, but maybe your 30s. You said you were kind of catching up with that, just kind of the things you missed. Is that right?
No, classical music was always there, but sort of as a subordinate role. I'm not a classically trained musician, but I have like some training in it, and it was always a presence in my life from earlier on. And I lived in Vienna for a while. That helped, of course.
Oh,
it was
shit.
inescapable.
Well, that'll do it.
Spend a lot of time.
But now you're kind of focusing on it.
It's in the ascendancy for precisely the reasons that I said that, because that is where the greatest intellectual challenge and the way we can discover more things. Like the history of music is very vast, and I'm just kind of very comfortable with expanding on what the perimeters that are already there. And for me, like the bigger thing in the last year, like during quarantine, maybe like 19th century opera, like the grand operas of the mid 19th century. I've been like I've listened. It takes like forever to listen to, but I know working my way through all of those operas that were written.
Well, you said up top that you don't listen to 2010s past, but I'm like, there's a lot that happened before that. So especially that 19th century.
Oh,
yeah. They'll fill up your weeks.
A lot happened before the 2010.
But I'm interested in like new classical music either. It's like you have something that I had paid attention to for some time, and going to festivals of new music and so on when that and that is like a very incredibly niche type.
Yeah, it really gets
new concert work.
New concert
people that
work,
old people don't want to pay for in their concerts.
Exactly what they squeeze in between the Tchaikovsky.
Give us more Mozart.
15 minutes.
I remember
twice a season.
I went to the LA Phil with my friend because after I went to Dapper, I got like free tickets to like another thing, and I went with my friend Scott, and like in between some stuff they had like a new piece in there, and I thought that was like if they didn't, I don't know when I'd ever hear it, right? Because it's even at the LA Phil, they're gonna still do some even if it might be a niche thing.
Mozart just dropped.
Yeah,
he's back.
But what you say about it, like an intellectual exercise in music, I think that's also what's very interesting. I mean, dumbed down, it's more of like, okay, what can I learn from this composer and apply that in my own writing? It's not as super academic where I'm like analyzing the theory that hard, but it's it's still the ideas of okay, he's he's picking this kind of instrumental texture for this kind of piece, or the intervals here and how he's voicing it. I think that is so fascinating, and that's kind of why I like listening to what I do, because there's like we said earlier, there's a little bit of a medium for that, because otherwise I guess it would be lost. It would just be learning for no reason. I think it's kind of fun. Just like I realized as we're doing this, I knew I liked kind of like abstract shapes in for artwork, and then like last year or 2 years ago I started just kind of painting for fun. It's obviously not to the same level, but it's an idea of like taking what you're listening to or what you're exposed to, art, music, fashion, and then kind of finding a way to literally implement it in your life. And yeah, I mean, I guess music is just one kind of major thing for that. Because I always said, if I always wondered what would have happened if I ended up studying music. But as I told Henrik, my parents said accounting, and I said as a 16-year-old, okay. So a little unfortunate there, but hey, that's fun.
Yeah, the museum is a good metaphor for that, because like I remember, when you're younger, in your teens or 20s, you go to a museum, you want to look at everything, you want to like absorb every part of every era, and you go past from the realist to the impressionist to the cubist and all the way through and now when I go to the museum, I pick out one or two things, and that's what I look at, and then I go.
I only go to dinosaur museums.
Yeah, but then it's which dinosaur, which era do you want to see, right?
Do you want to see the water dinosaurs? Do you want to see
I do not care. If it's got dinosaurs, I'm there. If it's got,
I'm guessing.
If an ad says we have dinosaurs, I'm like, whoa, you now have Jason. I'm there.
There's an importance here. No? There's an importance here. Like, it's not exactly like those legendary Buddhist monks who contemplate the shapes of a bean for hours for days on end.
Right.
There is certain thing both in style and in music, a certain type of surrender to the structure of the object itself rather than what you bring to it.
Right,
your own subjective view of it, you don't look for reflections of your own whatever you think it is in like a movie or a piece of art or
Right.
piece of music anymore. You're able to sort of contemplate the structure in a much more sort of accepting way, and that's been like a great gift when that happens. You can really get to that level of absorption, which really isn't possible when your own subject sort of gets in the way. And for style, I think that is slowly also happening. I'm sort of, when I wear something, it's kind of, I'm trying to honor the things on their own terms rather than trying to make it into something that is new or original or caring or in any way adequate to something else.
Right.
And I think that's, I don't know.
I mean that is actually I think about that too. I mean, on a very basic level, this is so dumb, but when I was writing like, you know, music back in high school, a program would let me, the DAW I was using, you know, when you put like the voice of or whatever, the oboe or the sample, whatever, and you play on the keyboard, it'll play it across all registers, right? It'll just play the entire keyboard, and you know, even if it's really low, it'll still make a sound, even if it's just like a very minimal tone. But then when you start actually writing, when I use it in Finale, where it's more of a score writing, like literally like the actual pages score writing, as opposed to using a keyboard. When I was writing there, it forced me to only use the actual registers that the instrument could actually produce. Like you can't. I couldn't do a low D on the oboe because the D just in that octave didn't work, and so I had to think of it. And also, it's very obvious, but like think of it in the actual ways of the instrument, and then doing it in terms of clothing. I think that's kind of interesting too, where you know, I'm not wearing a denim jacket under a suit. I'm wearing a denim jacket with jeans or with chinos as kind of like the way it technically was supposed to be done. Maybe that's a little bit related to what you were kind of saying about honoring what it was on its own terms. But again, I'm not trying to like turn it into something else. And I think that's why maybe, you know, I've been experimenting on that end a little bit less. But I mean, I'm still young. I hope I'm not set in my ways before I'm 30. So like, that's the kind of the other fear too. Well, anyway, I know we have like a little bit of time here. I do want to get to Matt, Matt Wags. I don't know if well, that's his full name. I wanted to change it from producer Matt. But Matt, are you ready? I know you said you were plugging in your headphone mic. How do you unmute? You click on the bottom left of your computer, the mute button.
And also let me know what your
microphone
Instagram username is, because I don't have you here. Because I couldn't. I don't.
Oh, there we go. It was actually when I was clicking the unmute mic. You need to like go through another menu. But hello.
Hello.
I'm not very active on Instagram.
All good.
I guess I can type myself in there in the Patreon Discord that I should probably plug here.
Thank you.
But yeah, that was actually one of the points I was going to maybe bring up with sort of like music, menswear, or whatever the situation is that I might be on the more normie end of the spectrum, but I'm partially on the Discord just looking for, you know, knowing that the people who might be into sort of like milsurp, menswear end of things will have interesting music suggestions and food. I would say that I'm more active in the non-menswear portions of the of the Discord.
Yeah, no worries.
But that's cool for me. But that's my Discord plug if anyone's on the fence with that. Yeah, I did make a little bullet list a second ago.
Wow, prepared.
Yeah, I did try to, because I mean, listening and thinking through there, I think the influences on style from music have, you know, it doesn't necessarily always affect the way I dress, but sometimes, you know, like my more maybe like flamboyant musical heroes of like York, David Bowie. Right. I'm not walking around dressed up like Bowie, other than like my Halloween costumes.
Sure.
But
but there is that sort of element of exploration that I think can really sort of be encouraged. Or if you have similar friend groups or go see those shows, it normalizes being a little outside of your standard comfort zone.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's one of the things I was thinking about with some of the podcasts or other notes going on. One of the other things that had come up for me personally, is like maybe it's just the fact of moving out of high school and not being, just like dirt poor, and going to concerts and actually seeing more cool people performing was maybe the first time that I'd seen, sort of even just things like wearing really cool glasses. Like in high school, I was probably wearing whatever you got at like the Sam's Club $99 optic station, then going and having some sort of actual in-person icon say, oh wow, that's like the bassist for this band, or the drummer here is obviously a super stylish, cool person, and they're wearing these funky glasses and doing this or that. Like there are those sorts of musical influences going on that were important to me in some ways, but they probably weren't really influencing day-to-day style. That, and if you go see a band, there might just be like one of the 5 members of the band who you might actually identify with or think is actually cool. There's not like too much to take from like a ratty t-shirt and a pair of jeans. And then I guess the last thing, I just posted this John Oswald Plunderphonics, this 1985 album collection that's kind of generally cited as the earliest sort of like popular music sampling type work going on. That, yeah, there's like tape loop sampling going on for quite a while, but he was starting to do what eventually turns into like girl talk mashups and stuff like that. So if you're at all interested in that sort of like recontextualizing earlier songs, and particularly blew up in terms of copyright law at the time, both for the music and then some of the visuals used. Like they used Michael Jackson bad album art that was modified. So that also, like, I think that might have been the bigger deal at the time of what was legislatable, if that's the right word,
Right.
to actually come after them and say, this is not cool that you're doing this. That essay that I'd posted in the Discord too is just sort of funny. Even the terms like plunderphonics is not what that was the original term he was thinking of for taking a sample from someone else's music and putting it into some of his own creations. But that's just something that's come up a lot on, I think particularly with some of like the Ivy and Bill Serp sort of
Right.
in particular pieces that might have a really strong connotation and trying to work them into more modern fits.
Right.
That's what had me thinking about that.
That is, yeah, thank you for sharing. That is very interesting. We didn't really talk about, or maybe it's because I don't listen to sampling stuff very often. But that is literally, recontextualizing another piece of music, and I think that's, probably the most overt way and as an expression of art, Well, cool. Thank you, Matt, for that. I'm gonna have to read this. I just put it up. Yeah, presented in 1985. This is going to be a very interesting read. But yeah, we have like 5 minutes left. Anyone in the chat want to tell us I know David's in here, but if you guys have anything that you guys want to say about menswear and style, let me know, and I'll call on you.
Let's put together our ultimate menswear band with all the menswear guys who play.
So I'll clearly be on bass.
Yes, you'll be on bass.
Do you play bass?
Nope.
Okay.
But I'll learn fast.
No, he was saying the bass, like as in.
Oh yeah, I'll sing
the bass
music.
The bass part.
No, I was gonna say actually, oh shit, I totally forgot what the connotation thing is.
Damn it!
I know.
Gone for
I mean, I think a lot of menswear has a very surface level, for the most part with musicians, right? Like you get a lot of the Miles Davis stuff, you get a lot of David Bowie, you get a lot of that, and just I don't basic's not the right word, but I think it's more expected, right? Because these guys are very stylish, as Kiyoshi told us a long time ago. He says that these guys are dressing for the stage, right? And I think as menswear guys start to get into that, or the new this kind of current generation gets more into that idea, it kind of like we said, recontextualizes menswear a little bit and shows that it's a little bit it's okay to kind of be bold in what you're wearing, kind of have some fun. Wear a t-shirt with this, wear Chelsea boots with that, wear a jaunty scarf with a untucked OCBD or whatever, like again, listening to Handcut Radio and listening to them, to Alex talk to Scott Frazier, Tony Sylvester, Andre, and everyone, like I think it's very clear that this current generation is in it's in pretty interesting hands, and seeing how they take the idea of like the bold dressing of a musician and apply that in how they dress. Could be broad strokes, you could call it that, but I still think it's very cool. And I think starting from that point, where some guys, at least who maybe they're not into menswear, but they start dressing like SLP, they get that idea of, okay, I can wear jeans and a leather jacket, but it doesn't have to be like Captain America and slacks. It can be like cool, I think that that's a good starting point. And looking more at musicians, applying the ideas that maybe even go behind creating music, I think is it's a good place to introduce some creativity into a style where historically the idea is to blend in or to be kind of conformist. Any other closing thoughts, Spencer, Matt, MJ?
We didn't mention choir uniforms.
Oh, there you
go.
I
thought somebody would bring it up at one point.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Okay. MJ, talk about. Yeah. Tell. Yeah. Explain that.
Well, let me just say really quickly. I think that when I had to wear a tuxedo for a choir thing, and in like middle school or freshman year or whatever. I definitely thought I looked exactly like James Bond in our 100% polyester tuxedos. I was like, holy shit, I look so cool.
Yeah, I don't know why. It was probably like I don't know if it was mob mentality or it was just when like all the guys were getting like measured for their Friar tuxedo, like it was like, yeah, man, like it's gonna be so cool. We're all gonna have our own tuxedos, and like, when you're like with your friends and
it looks cool.
It's fun. Yeah, you're like getting ready for a performance, and you're all wearing tuxedos. It's like, yeah, but then like it could the novelty quickly wears off.
Well, okay, I want to
in the delight of day.
Yeah, I've had my share of choir stuff. Obviously, I as a kid I liked suits. As I think some people have known that or seen pictures of that, and then I kind of gradually went full punk. And by that I wore like a black T-shirt that had a gas mask on it with the studded belt. Because I was still a good boy. I wasn't gonna go crazy. Yeah,
definition.
I would wear my Tokidoki shirts with black jeans. If you don't know what Tokidoki is, look that up. But no, I remember I went to went to Friar Tux. I went to 3-day suit warehouse in like some fucking place in East LA, and I got my suit there. And when they say they fitted, that just means that they hem the pants. Like that doesn't. That's not like they they just shorten the sleeves. Yeah,
and
they find out that you're a 38 short or whatever you were in high school, and then
and then I was gonna say I wore a blue shirt, and then for the sake of budget, they would just keep that the whole time, and then every year they would change out the tie because of course people graduate, right? So you can't buy the same tie each year. So every year we would wear get different ties. And there was one time where after singing, because we sang on Saturday because that's when the Seventh-day Adventists go to church, we had to we had to rehearse for our concert, and so we had to wait till it was sundown Saturday afternoon, evening. And there was one day where I got a haircut or something, and I like after my church thing, I saw all I had was wearing the choir suit, and I ended up because I got my haircut, I just wore my a V-neck T-shirt with my suit because I was like, oh, I don't, it's got hair, I want to take it off and just kind of feel cool. And I remember like walking in wearing a T-shirt and a black suit. Probably didn't look good, but in my head I looked like a GQ model or whatever. And people did say, oh, it's probably because I got the haircut, but they were like, oh, Ethan, you look good. I'm like, thanks, man. Like it's wearing my baggy Hanes T-shirt with a baggy suit and square-toed shoes, But it gets even worse from there. When in college I was in chorale, and which is the one that anyone can get into because I couldn't make it into the university one because I wasn't that good. But hey, it makes sense, right? Like you're in college, there are people literally who are music majors now. Like it's not just the auditioning process is still a little bit harder.
It's different.
Yeah, but I remember wearing a tuxedo there, and it was bad. But a part of that whole thing, you get to get your patent leather shoes or the shiny fake versions of them. And I remember them asking me, what's your shoe size? And I like blanked. I said, oh, I'm a size 9. And so
what are you, bowling?
I don't know where they are. I was like 16 years old in college, dude. And I didn't think to like take off my shoe, or maybe all my shoes were bad. I don't know. I really don't know. But
you rolled the dice every time.
Like Chaplin.
Yeah. I remember like we had to walk from like there was like a processional thing, like not because like like the choir enters like the church service and they stand they're in the stands. I remember like clomping around on these shoes that were 2 sizes too big. I'm a size 7, by the way. Okay, yeah. I know that now, but like just clomping around and just awful, dude. Choir uniforms. I'm very surprised I didn't get turned off to menswear after that embarrassing time.
Oh yeah. We used the fake bow ties also for our tuxedos, by the way.
You have to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's no hope. Yeah. There's no hope for self-tie. No, when Ethan first brought up this topic, I sort of laughed. I was like, composer style, all the composers I know dress like shit. Like be it like students or like
they still do.
Faculty.
They still do.
Yeah. So because like again, my old choir director from undergrad, like he literally tells me, I still wear my for like current concerts. I just wear my undergrad tuxedo and just like, just like it's so different and just like people don't care. And so it's interesting when you juxtapose that with people who are into it. And then, the more famous people who clearly probably have stylists and just, it's there's a lot to it when you look in behind the curtain.
I'm curious about Brian Tyler, the guy who composed the score to the Fast and the Furious. He looks like such a fuckboy, but I'm wondering because he's so young. I wonder if that's literally what he dressed like. Undercut hair with a long top or whatever, kind of Justin Bieber-y, whatever.
The British style.
Yeah, and then like fucking tight black shirt with tight black jeans. Because he's a cool composer for cool masculine films.
Sexy movies like Fast and Furious.
Gets me in the mood.
And Fast and Furious and Now You See Me. So
now you to me
even more.
And of course on the flip side, like you got like Jerry Goldsmith, who's done a lot of great films in the from like the 70s to 90s, wearing a fucking ponytail and like a denim shirt with like a fucking Bugs Bunny tie or whatever shit. Like, come on, dude.
You don't wear a ponytail. The ponytail wears you.
Yeah.
You wear the rat tail and you tuck it behind your shirt.
Oh my god.
I think out of everyone there, other than like the early 20th century guys who obviously wore like kind of Ivy stuff, I think the best one that I saw was Leonard Bernstein. I mean, he just clearly was so cool, like
he's got
he's also
as young
he's
Tom
also
Steele
kind of
showed.
crazy. He was like kind of crazy, right? Like he was weird. He's a weird guy.
He was.
Yeah.
Love him.
But yeah,
love him or leave him.
Picture. There's a picture of him like conducting, but like his hands are in front of him, and young Chomsky sent it to me saying, "Look, Lenny's fucking an invisible woman." I thought that was so stupid.
He's one of the great conductors.
Young Chomsky, electronics composer, or I don't know, like a what do you call it, synth guy,
producer.
There's a name for it, probably.
Yeah, but good example of trad looks, but with a fun, creative music.
Does he use analog synths?
He made a track with.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, that's another example
with Dave of Atelier Fugue.
Yeah, and Atelier Fugue, a guy classically trained in saxophone and has done a lot of jazz stuff and different bands and everything. And flute, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so
he's a flautist.
I'm not surprised.
That's what's called.
Where obviously, it's in varying degrees, but I think a lot of guys who are into menswear, as Matt said, kind of probably have, interesting views on music at the same time. And I think that there's
Dave also likes pop.
Wow. Well, the reviews are in.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's kind of it's just very interesting where with menswear, again, broad strokes, but I think that a lot of people in menswear tend to be pretty aware of culture, to again varying degrees, but it's kind of fun to see, liking art and different music and different forms of cinema and everything. It's just very cool, to guys who like to wear old clothing, vintage, milsurp, and bespoke tailoring.
Clothing the whole office can agree on.
Fun little thing. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. If you want to listen to the podcast and the essay, that is going to be in the description of this VOD. We don't really have anything happening next week. We're recording our bonus episode for you guys. And you can hear that if you join the Patreon.
That's right.
And that's
$5 gets you access to the
$5
Discord
footlong
and a footlong at Subway. When you subscribe to our Patreon,
I'll let people know
you can print out a coupon for a free sandwich at Subway.
We mail it from LA.
Subway.
That's not true. But $5 gets you bonus episode, access to Discord. $10 gets our vocal cords vibrating the same frequencies as your voice.
That would be vocal folds.
In the same frequency as your voice.
That's insane. Sorry, that's your name.
We can't break that down.
No. You're saying
if you pay us $10,
we sound like you.
We sound exactly like you. Pay $10 to change our voice.
All right,
that's our promise.
Time to go to the home.
So anyway, big thank you to our Sadcast fanatics. So thank you to Seth Peterson, Eric Hall, Austin Malat, Shane Curry, Philip Lagarde, Otto Jessica, and Jeremy Ostreicher. We appreciate all of you.